All right, we're back with more Xbox news, and as expected this week, none of it's great because we knew yesterday it was still an ongoing story, and we have, unfortunately, more cancellations, more layoffs, and a story about Halo to get into today. As we're recording this, there's also an ongoing story with ZeniMax Online Studios, and what exactly the project they were working on is. I'm giving that story a little more time to cook, and I have additional thoughts on where Bethesda is at as a whole moving forward after Microsoft has practically gutted their key talent. So look forward to those videos within the next week or so. But for now, let's turn our attention to more game cancellations and more layoffs in the world of Xbox. Let's start off with a post from Romero Games, who writes, "We have some difficult news to share. Last night, we learned that our publisher has canceled funding for our game, along with several other unannounced projects at other studios. This was a strategic decision made at a high level within the publisher, well above our visibility or control. We deeply wish there had been anything we could have done to prevent this outcome. This absolutely isn't a reflection of our team's work, performance, or the quality of the project itself. We hit every milestone on time, every time consistently received high praise, and easily passed all our internal gates. We are incredibly proud of the work being done and of our talented team behind it, the best we've worked with. We're currently evaluating next steps and are working quickly to support our team. Many of us have worked together for more than a decade, some over 20 years. It's an extremely difficult day, and we're heartbroken that it's come to this. If you know of any opportunities or ways you can help our incredible team, please reach out. Thank you to everyone who's offered support and kindness and encouragement during this difficult time. Brenda Romero from Romero Games." So I'm really tempted to start calling Xbox the Legend Slayer because this was John Romero and his wife's team. John Romero being like a godfather of first-person shooters, Wolfenstein, Doom, yeah, like those games. And he's working on a new shooter, and when you axe that game, I mean, I just look at how they've handled Bethesda, and it's a really good way of capturing it, right? When you think of the teams they got at Bethesda, from Arcane to Bethesda Game Studios, ZeniMax Online, and so on, think of the legends who defined all of those teams. You had Tango Gameworks, who had Shinji Mikami, and eventually John Johannes, who directed Hi-Fi Rush, and we know how that went. You had Harvey Smith, who's like a visionary for the immersive sim genre, who was over at Arcane. You had Matt Firer, of course, over at ZeniMax Online Studios, founded that team, made one of the most successful MMOs on the market, and the list goes on. All those people are gone now. The people who heavily defined what these studios were, the products they made, and obviously have the cachet to kind of push for things that otherwise new talent probably couldn't because they're not as established or influential. And as I said on Twitter, I feel like Xbox is a Todd Howard away, and many of us have speculated that Elder Scrolls 6 would be his last game, but a Todd Howard away from losing everything that made Bethesda Bethesda. That also includes Pete Hines, who worked at Bethesda for a long while and exited shortly after the acquisition by Microsoft. So when you look at this, now you lose John Romero. There are rumors, though unconfirmed, kind of grain of salt rumors, about Kojima's deal going up in flames with Xbox. Like, you need legends, especially, you know, it's not like, oh, we're like this third-party publisher. I guess you are now, but there was a time you were a platform holder, and this type of talent defined your studios, and it's still incredibly important, but they've lost so many key names that have defined gaming. Like, I hate to play the who's who game because I think sometimes it depletes the work coming from the, quote, lower rungs on the ladder of the entire development team, and any good leader will tell you that it's not all them, but there is a vision that it starts out with, an understanding, and you work with your team to get there. And when you get rid of people who are proven in doing that many times over, that's a failure to recognize talent. Something that Microsoft, not even just Xbox, but Microsoft as a whole, is really known for. And yeah, when you're gutting talent at your key money makers like Call of Duty, King, you know, I don't know if they have much of an eye for talent. Moving along, though, Jez Corden reports on Twitter that State of Decay 3 is currently safe from this round of cancellations for those asking. This is because as the news is breaking, you can tell by the timestamp of the tweet, a lot of people are like, oh boy, we're identifying projects that haven't been seen for a while or that have been in development for a really long time are getting cut. what's going on with Undead Labs. And yeah, kind of their demo, as we'll talk about with the Perfect Dark demo at the end of this video, were similar to me. Sort of vertical slice energy, not true gameplay, but not also completely the in-engine style, like CGI footage where it's like, yeah, this is an idea of what you're playing. Like, it's convincing enough, but it's definitely walking that gray area. The key word of what Jez said here, though, is round of cancellations, because we really don't know with Xbox. As I recounted yesterday and on Twitter, I mean, you can look at the list here in front of you of every cancellation and shutdown since just the top of 2024. It's unbelievable. So I think the scariest message sent to teams like Double Fine, Ninja Theory, Compulsion is how useful are they in this new regime at Xbox of nickel and diming. And there's no better example of the nickel and diming than what's going on with Halo, in my opinion. So let's read this article here from Engadget, and then we're going to get into a Halo insider who has proven to be correct about multiple bits of insider information. And one thing they say will probably get you a little bit scared about what Halo Studios might do with the future of the Halo franchise when it comes to key voices. Yeah, we'll talk about it. But let's start off with Engadget, who writes, even before the Xbox layoffs, there was tension at Halo Studios. At least 5 employees at Halo Studios have been fired as part of the company-wide layoffs at Microsoft on Wednesday, according to a developer with knowledge of the situation. An estimated 200 to 300 people remain at the studio. Okay, so this is what I call that nickel and diming, ramen noodles type energy that Microsoft is on right now. Like, you know, when you want to get something really bad, so you cut your budget and you go on like the ramen noodle diet, like it's dollar instant ramen, you're good to go. When you're cutting 5 people, like a 200 to 300 person team, that is some nickel and diming energy as far as I'm concerned. So I just got a good laugh out of that, because one of the people who was laid off was like a visual artist, a UI artist, like people that are needed, but okay, who am I to say, right? I don't work there. So continuing on, they write, the mood at the studio is tense, especially when it comes to one project that was recently in crisis, according to the developer. Sorry, I gotta stop there. I didn't actually plan to, but reading it out loud and having it fully processed, I'm like, man, Halo Studios 343, like, just can't get out of their own way. Like, the fact that there was a project in crisis after Infinite, that was such a valuable learning lesson. They restructured that team, they renamed their team, like, they've done everything to just jolt some life into this team, some organization into this team. And it's not all bad news. There's some things in here we'll read that don't sound awful, but just reading that something is in crisis, just so, I know game development's hard, but man, so someone help them out. Like, it's so bad over there. Anyway, they write, I don't think anybody's really happy about the quality of the product right now, they said. There's been a lot of tension and pep talks trying to rally folks to ship. The studio had recently teased that it would reveal what it's been working on at this year's Halo World Championship in October. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It'll be extremely relevant to another piece of information here. But we assume that project they're talking about is the Halo Combat Evolved remake, because as I covered previously, they're continuing Halo Infinite story in a book. Yeah, like a straight up sequel to Infinite story. Like, they mentioned the ending and everything and what's happening on Zeta Halo, and they're continuing in a book. So I assume what they're doing is kind of what they're doing with Gears. Let's reload, let's remake, kind of like what they're doing with Oblivion as well. And I think that's a lot of the future of Xbox. If I were to really put on my doomer cap and say like what I think they're going to do, I think they're just going to tap that old well, kind of just re-water those plants. The Halo, Gears, Elder Scrolls, just Fallout, just get these old entries to multi-plat everywhere, remade, and just kind of milk that dry. Continuing on, the employee I spoke with said that since 2023, there's been a general shift toward working with contracted studios rather than individual contractors in the United States and Europe to speed up Halo production. This mirrors the way other major FPS franchises like Call of Duty and Battlefield are developed. Xbox in general feels years behind the curve in game development and has led to a lot of wasted time and effort, the employee said. At the same time, multiple departing team members have spoken warmly about their time at Halo Studios and the people they worked with. This is the good news part. Like, I wanted to include this because I know it's doomer. I'm not trying to cope, not trying to like save the day here, but this is good news because Halo was completely mismanaged with Infinite. We learned how contracted talent absolutely bit that project in the ass. And the reason contracted talent is a big thing in Xbox is because it's a big thing at Microsoft. And we see why based off Phil Spencer's layoff letter, where it's like, hey, you're fired, but also we have other open positions at Microsoft Gaming that you can apply for and you'll get priority there. Again, so that they can contract you. You're desperate for a job. You'll probably take the pay and you'll probably take less benefits so that you can figure out your situation beyond that. And they know this, but this is how they make a ton of money here. But contracting studios, like we heard about Certain Affinity working with 343, now Halo Studios. I mean, Battlefield is a great example. They have 4 full development studios working on Battlefield 6, and I'm really pulling for that game. I hope Battlefield 6 is absolutely sick, but you've got so many teams working on that. So this feels more standard. We saw, before its cancellation, Perfect Dark brought in Crystal Dynamics. They brought them in to help with that project. Co-development efforts are very common in today's industry. Obsidian Entertainment was helping with State of Decay 3 as an example, because Undead Labs was really impressed with how there was an untethered co-op element to the online play of Grounded, and they wanted that for State of Decay 3. So yeah, it's a pretty common thing. It's good to see Halo catching up with the times. So that's your good news for the video. I'm gonna flip the switch on you now, because this is where get a little bit worried. Microsoft is increasingly focused on AI, a shift that's propelled its stock price to new highs. At Meta's LlamaCon in April, CEO Satya Nadella said that as much as 30% of the company's code is now written by AI. Activision in February admitted to using AI in Black Ops 6. It's unclear how much AI has to do with the latest round of layoffs, but use of Copilot is no longer optional within Microsoft. The developer I spoke with said, quote, they're trying their damnedest to replace as many jobs as they can with AI agents, end quote. So I don't need to explain to you why this sounds awful. I mean, there's even smaller teams like 11-bit who got caught using AI when it came to the alters. And to be fair to 11-bit, I do think compared to what Microsoft is doing, it's definitely a lot of bad faith anger being thrown their way. And I think what they did was forgivable given their team size. Someone like Microsoft who can afford people trying to cut like this, it is going to seep into their game development efforts. This is something I talked about in Defining Duke. Like, no doubt, this is the next step, right? We're seeing how earlier this year, right? It's been such a rapid year, you might have forgot. But earlier this year, they were showing off those AI tools for game testing and iteration and idea generation and all that stuff. So you got to pay attention to what's happening at Microsoft, because it always bleeds into Xbox. So where this gets really interesting is, as we mentioned earlier, over on Halo Waypoint, you'll see here that the Road to Halo World Championship 2025 had a blog post, and it's there that they do mention over the past few weeks, there's been a fair amount of speculation about when and where more details might emerge about the multiple projects Halo Studios is actively working on. We don't usually comment on such matters, but this time we want to enter the chat and share a little bit more perspective for Halo fans who might be on the fence about whether or not to attend this year. Last year at Halo World Championship, we premiered A New Dawn, where we talked about the switch to Unreal Engine, gave you a look behind the scenes at Project Foundry, and debuted our evolution to Halo Studios as we enter a new chapter for Halo. For us, A New Dawn was just the beginning. At this year's Halo World Championship, we look forward to continuing the conversation. Speculation is always fun, but if you want the official scoop on what Halo Studios has been working on, you don't want to miss this year's Halo World Championship. So yeah, they're announcing whatever's next for them at this World Championship. That's October this year. And who had the scoop first but Rebs Gaming, who reported this a month ago. So he was right on top of it, and we've covered his work a lot on Defining Duke. He's typically on top of things for Halo. And here's what he posted on his Twitter account at one point. Here's my exclusive video report, which reveals Halo voice actors Steve Downes, who's Master Chief, and Jen Taylor, who's Cortana, haven't been contacted by Microsoft and Halo Studios to be in the new Halo games. They fear they're being replaced and are on strike against the games industry for replacing voice actors with AI. He reported this separately in his own video, but this is the fear, right? Like, there are a lot of voice actors and actresses on strike. These strikes have affected certain games developments. I believe Kojima actually shared how Death Stranding 2's release timing was actually affected by certain actors and actresses that were on strike that he wanted to have in the game. It actually could have shipped much sooner. So in fairness, when there's, a strike ongoing here, this means that they might be looking elsewhere. And I will just say, if they remake Combat Evolved, like is rumored, and it's not Steve Downes and Jen Taylor, and they're very much career capable still, ready to go, yeah, that's not going to go over well, man. It's just not. I can tell you right now, like, there cannot be another voice for Master Chief. And if that voice for Chief is AI generated, oh boy, a lot of people won't play that out of principle. So we'll see. Not trying to fearmonger, not trying to doom and gloom, but again, as someone who does have a good track record of inside information on what's happening with Halo Studios, just wanted to make sure people were aware of the trajectory Microsoft's on, the feeling inside the studio, and recent news. So you're not, if you're watching this channel, too caught off guard. Okay, last story for the video, and it's funny because technically there's still more with ZeniMax, but I want to let that story grow and see what's happening there before we fully report. Ethan Gack, who was over at Kotaku, posted that the Perfect Dark sizzle reel at last year's Xbox showcase looked awesome, but someone at the time also told me it was basically fake. Since then, a former member of the initiative commented on this story, writing, "This demo, it was actually in engine. I was one of the 3 level designers that worked on it. It worked best if you played it the way the person playing in the video plays it, but it still worked even if you didn't hit the marks perfectly. There's some fake stuff in it, and the real gameplay system shown off worked just enough to look good in this video. We were rapidly making real design decisions so as not to knowingly lie to players about what the game will be. The parkour is all real. The hacking/deception is mostly real. The combat is real, in quotes, in that someone had to do all that stuff for real in the video, but it's all set up to be played exactly that way and didn't play well if you played it a different way. I'm seeing big controversy over this whole thing was fake, and it's annoying me, so I wanted to say something." I'm inclined to take the word of a developer over Kotaku. Don't know about y'all, but yeah, looking at this and hearing their description, what we saw is what many of us suspected, which is a vertical slice. A vertical slice is kind of that proof of concept, like this is what we're doing, this is our polish level we're shooting for the rest of the game, and we're going to build the rest of the game like this. And if it's convincing enough, you get funding, you get support, you bring in more staff, and you make the rest of the game to that quality level with the timeline that's identified by that vertical slice. Like, okay, it took us how long to make this, polish it up, clean it all up. Okay, now that we know that, we can timeline our whole project and then go and make this thing. So we don't know how long it took to make this vertical slice. This game was in development for a while. A lot of that original staff left. They brought in Crystal Dynamics. It seemed like that renewed some life there. The game from that vertical slice did look really cool. If they could have built the rest of the game like this, I mean, it would have probably been amazing. Just the deception, the stealth elements, the graphics. I mean, it looked really good. But if it took them years to make just that window, and it's like, yeah, we'll need another 5 years to do the rest of this, that's where, again, it gets in that complicated area that I talked about in our last video on Defining Duke of, yeah, like, you get why it gets canceled, but someone should have stepped in much earlier, recognizing the problem with this game years ago, which is when the original staff completely left. Like, that's when the problem was there. And this will be the biggest stain on this current leadership core at Xbox, because this was your baby, and it just reaffirms what everyone already thought of you, which is y'all don't know how to make games, simply because you tried to give birth to a studio, injected with talent, and it's been a complete failure. 7 years, nothing to show for it except this vertical slice. It reminds me a lot of Prey 2. When Human Head was working on Prey 2 with Bethesda, it was just such a what could have been demo for me. I love the Star Wars Bounty Hunter games. I actually have it right here next to me. I adore this game, right? And so when Prey 2 showed up with this vertical slice, it was like an 11-minute E3 demo. I remember I got an appendectomy, so I was laid up in bed just drowsy on like painkillers watching this demo, and I just always looked at it as like what could have been. Man, this game looked so good, so cool, and unfortunately it got shut down. It got canceled. Basically what's happened in Perfect Dark reminds me a lot of that game, and so just wanted to shout that one out, get that off my chest a little bit. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I've got for you today. No doubt we'll probably be back tomorrow talking more about whatever's going on with ZeniMax. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.